Well, the Goblin was turned inside out, right side up, upside down, back, forth.
Left to right, yeah.
All axes.
All axes were exercised.
And it came back to the bench.
Yep.
In perfect flying condition, which is always a good day for anybody that
Always a
flies
good
these
day.
things. We'll start out with the review with model characteristics. Assembly, we gave it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, the instruction manual itself is color printed instruction manual. It's good. It walks you through each of the steps. Pretty, very straightforward and very simple. The only thing I noticed was they show the, like any helicopter manual, you've got dotted lines with 1,000,001 screws kind of going into certain areas. They printed black on black for the directions of where the screws go in. So on the manual, you'll have screws shooting into a black carbon fiber mainframe, and it just kind of disappears, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, you just line the holes up, and okay, this one must go up here, and this one must go up there. It wasn't bad. That was the only thing I noticed on the manual that was a little tough to read, but it is a very straightforward installation. Everything fit. All the parts were there, present in the kit, of course, no missing parts or anything. All the parts were present and accounted for. They fit nicely. There was really nothing, and in fact, usually when you build a kit, there's a couple things like, I'm glad I triple checked that because I wasn't real. With the Goblin, it wasn't that way. It was pretty much straightforward. It was a very linear assembly process. You start at the beginning, you go through to the end, and it all comes together and makes sense for the most part. So, and then you look at the actual the complexity, and considering that if you do a lot of traditional builds, this is a different design. This is transmission. You've got more parts and more pieces going together. It's very well explained.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any situations at all in the assembly. It took me a little bit longer than usual, just because it was a new platform for me to assemble with some different design components. But it was very very accommodating.
All right, so that brings us to compatibility, which compatibility means how well does this platform accept other manufacturers' products? How well can you fit their products into, exchange one for the other, that type of thing. We gave it a 5 out of 5.
Absolutely. One of the things you'll notice right out the bat is, and the manual talks about it, is if you're using this, then this. If you're using this layout, use this. Optional trays for mounting your receiver, your gyro. Very flexible on the gyro location and the mounting orientation. They tell you how to route the motor wires down the side, and really, there's a lot of manuals that don't cover that on helicopters. You're kind of on your own, and I mean, what I've done, and I think a lot of people do too, is they see what the other guys are doing at the field, like, hey, how'd you put your ESC in, or where'd you put your BEC, and you kind of look at how they did the layout, and from theirs and your ideas, you kind of come up with how you want to put it together. It's not a showstopper by any means, but what you may find sometimes too is after the build, you think, man, I wish I'd have put that on the other side, or I wish I'd have put that here. And with the Goblin's instruction manuals, they show you some optional mounting locations, and they've taken it all pretty much into consideration. It's ESC's up front, easily routed up to the battery wires. BEC goes right down below, fits there nicely. Plenty of mounting locations. We have combined receiver and fly barless control unit, so that was simple. I put the tray in and mounted it on top of there. It makes for a clean installation. There aren't gobs of wires everywhere and everything.
This also allows for different gyros and different setups.
That's what I mean. Yeah, you can use. You're using a V bar, you're using a B-Stex, you're using a GY or whatever gyro or fly barless control unit. You're going to be able to mount it in a location that it's suited for, and everything's easy to get to. So, and I have to give them credit for forward thinking. There's a lot of forward thinking going on with the design itself. We've seen a lot of helis that are just kind of churning out the old proven way to do things, which is great and fine and wonderful. But as we move into electric power plants, when we move into different setups, you need to evolve the product along with that. And the Goblins were really designed for today's electronics and today's configuration, which makes them easier from that perspective, from a compatibility perspective.
And when it's stripped down like that, it looks very
It doesn't look too exciting, does it?
Well, it looks very empty compared to what you're used to seeing.
If you have the main packs out, it's just everything's condensed right up here on that transmission. Exactly. It's simple and straightforward, and it's clean everywhere else.
All right, part quality, 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, the parts were fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of carbon fiber in here. What I did notice is as soon as I started pulling out the carbon fiber is that I had black hands, and which that happens just through the machining process itself. There's a lot of carbon dust on it. I did have to go through and file all of the edges. These things were like razor blades when I pulled them out of the kit. The part quality is fantastic, but some of the finishing, maybe on those main frames, would have been nice to not have those quite so razor sharp. So I sat there and probably spent about 20 minutes with a small file just going through and smoothing everything out, because you're going to reach inside the frame. It's just, you're going to be working on these, and just during the assembly process, and it was sharp, man. It was like a razor blade. It sliced your knuckles to pieces.
That's probably quicker than trying to get calluses on your hands.
Yeah, or cleaning out your cuts. So spend some time with the file and put it together. But as far as the actual quality of the aluminum and the steel components and all the carbon fiber, it was beautifully finished. It was and very nicely made, very durable and thick too. So.
Okay, all up weight, you've got it marked average to high.
I do have average to high. Now I say that it's average. It's tough. The 630 size, there aren't a whole lot of 630s out there. There's 600s, there's 700s. We see a 635. There's a couple in that range. You're kind of at that. It's a crossover. I mean, this is a very, very significant or substantial size helicopter. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't set it on a table beside a 600. It's truly in between that 600 and 700 size. So when you put it on the lower side with lighter weight batteries, which you can go with 3,000 milliamp batteries, there's different optional cell configurations, so you can really lighten the load up. And if your whole goal is to just do performance or competition flying for the duration of that competition flight, you can lighten the load quite a bit on it, and it becomes a very, I say an average. If you put the two together, 600 and 700s, it's a very average weight, which the average is good. You want to be average.
Yeah.
If you really kind of put a little more capacity battery in there, because when you go out and fly for the typical weekend flyer, they're not going through and practicing a routine and moving on, or practicing one maneuver and going on. They're just flying. They're doing a little bit of everything. They're doing 3D. They're doing pattern. They're having fun flying their helicopter. So they tend to migrate towards the bigger capacity. With that said, you start popping the little bigger capacity batteries on here, and I'd say it's average high for the size of the platform.
Yeah.
Now, take into consideration the power plant you put in, take into consideration the head speeds you can achieve, and the performance, that weight is not a problem.
Yeah.
And we found that very quickly, and when we went up to our 5,000 milliamp packs, just to try it. Why not?
Sure.
You've got them thrown in there, you got a ton of runtime, see what it's going to perform like, and it's not an issue. So.
Yeah. Model cost, average.
Model cost is average. I mean, there was discussion too when the Goblins first came out as far as a structural tail boom. Well, you break that boom, it's going to be a fortune. You look at the repair cost and you look at the model cost. If you look into the model cost itself, it's right on par. And when I say right on par, it actually goes to the low side if you consider all of the pro-level parts you get with the kit. You're not getting the kit and going, well, I'd really love to have this, and I really have to. It's a very simplified design, and you even said it, when the canopy's off and the batteries are out, there's not a whole lot to it. You got two main frame sections. You got the transmission and the structural tail boom. It's all carbon fiber and aluminum, so what are you going to upgrade? It's all there. The bearing blocks are there. Everything is set up for competition, so getting into this kit, it's get it in and you're done. You don't have to sit and piece part it and, I'd really like to put some carbon fiber skids on, or better skids. They're there. They're all there. It's all there. So I think it's very comfortably priced, and I think the value that you get at that price is on the very high end.
Yeah. It's
a high value. So,
all right. Well, that leads us to pilot experience, flight characteristics, 4.5 out of 5.
Mm-hmm. The Goblin flies very comfortably. As far as this, you're rolling the dice at this point. What do you set it up as? What options do you make? And I know you had asked before about servos. Mm-hmm. The servos we went with, the 6040s. Would I run those 6040 servos in competition? Absolutely not. Yeah. They don't have the response, the speed transit, and also the torque that you'd want in competition. I go to HV servos. I wouldn't go standard 6-volt servos. But we wanted to set this up. We have the high-end power plant, the competition power plant. We have the ESC. We have the CC Beck Pro in there. We have the BSTEX with the 7200 receiver. Everything's there. All we have to do is play around with the servos if we really want to tweak it over the top.
Sure.
I wanted to see how it would fly with what I'd call standard servos.
Yeah.
They're still high, they're high, they're standard voltage digital servos. They're very well built and they're designed for helicopters, but they're not, JR ultra torque high voltage servos. With that said, it kind of allowed me to see the airframe, the actual design of the helicopter, and what its inherent capabilities are, tendencies are, without saying, well, yeah, I just jammed a brand new off-the-line super mega torque servo on here, and boy, that thing really responds great. Yeah. Well, that's unfair. Your helicopter performs based primarily off of two major points: your piloting skills and the components you chose to set it up with.
Yeah.
That's why you see any pro pilot take just about any platform and win the competition. when if you really start splitting hairs, they may not have had the greatest platform out there to fly with, but they're so darn good as pilots.
Exactly.
They can tell the difference. They have a particular preference. When you get into setups like this, the flybarless control you choose is like, it's like putting on your own shoes or a pair you got to break in from the store. If you're comfortable with that flybarless control system, every helicopter you put that in is going to have an element of familiarity to you, and it's going to react the way you want it to. So when you look at the inherent capabilities or the characteristics of the actual helicopter, it does have a compact center of gravity. The structural tail boom combined with the aerodynamic canopy that flows right into it allows for very smooth, very clean fast forward flight. You don't have the whistling and all the drag that goes along with that more boxy open structure and stuff that you normally see. So it's a very slick airframe in the air, which is nice. As far as balance goes, the weight of the structural tail boom and stuff, your pirouettes can be lightning fast. Again, they're very well balanced. You don't have a whole lot of options as far as battery placement goes, so you're not, it's like you're going to massively shift the CG. So it really allowed us to test like those 3850s in here and how it felt. It had a great feeling to it. It's by all means competition grade, absolutely precise, and ready to accept just about any pilot's inputs or skills. Now, if you've been flying one platform for years and years and years, and you switch over to the Goblin, it's going to feel a little different to you. But does it have the capabilities to do everything and excel at those? Yes, absolutely. It's definitely at that class.
All right, turnaround time, meaning between flights. What kind of time are we looking at to get this thing back up in the air, average to long on this model?
It did. When we look at electric power plants on helicopters, we don't have a fuel tank that we just plug in our pump, fill it up, throw in the glow and fire it over and you're ready to go. We have batteries to charge, and batteries are charged outside of the aircraft. You need to hook up your balancing connectors, and you need to get your main leads on. This does not have a sliding tray on it. It does not have external mounted packs. They're mounted within the main frame. You have no rear access. Your ESC by standard layout is up front, so all your power connections are up front, so you're going to route through the chassis going forward. You have a very streamlined canopy, where it's a huge advantage when it comes to aerodynamics. Taking it off is a different story, and you experience that yourself. You ultimately, to pull that canopy off, you've got two thumb screws. It's not a big deal. Those pop right off, but the canopy spreads. When you look at the top of the canopy, this wraps all the way around. This is the forward facing. This goes up and cups right around the entire head block. If you have the swash plate up, the linkage gets in the way. So you really need to have the blades free. You need to have them turned perpendicular to the tail boom, and you need to push that swash plate down to slide it across to where it actually lines up with the main linkage and the main shaft to be able to get it out. Now you could pry the heck out of it and pull it, but you're going to just scarf the inside of this edge of this fiberglass like crazy. Yeah, you're really going to put a lot of pressure, and it doesn't really want to pull this way. You've got two 90-degree surfaces, so it's really tough to pull apart. The canopy's not the easiest to take off, and then the batteries themselves are not on a tray, so you have to unfasten both of the batteries, pull the batteries out, charge them, put them back in, place them, put your wires back in, and then feed your canopy over. It's not the fastest turnaround. It takes a little while, but it's guys that want to do fast turnarounds and are working on specific maneuvers, they'll just leave the canopy off. They're not doing fast forward speed, and it's not going to affect the flight performance, and then they can turn it around a little bit faster, but there's a little more involved.
Okay, performance range. Basically meaning this platform, how far can you go with it? Where can it take you if you are starting out from a basic introduction into 3D? Will it take you up to Pro? This one we've got marked Basic through Pro.
Basic through Pro, and what you'll find is the setups, and it's on their website as well as in the instruction manual. They're going to have general 3D and hard 3D categories inside the manual with a ton of different options in terms of pinion, what the recommended pinion is, what the RPM is going to be, and then of course your usable pitch. And this will swing with a stock head, plus or minus 12 degrees, 12.5 degrees. Depending on how you set things up, but as far as recommended performance on 3D and hard 3D, we went ahead and ran with about 2,000 RPM head speeds on this for testing, and then of course taking it higher is going to produce the results that you'd expect. But how did the DFC head actually handle about 2,000 RPM? We thought we were going to get an oscillation, a little bit of wiggle. It didn't. It was smooth as glass. So when you look at basic maneuvers, that's forward flight, that's, you may be getting some very basic aerobatics, you may do a loop, you may be doing some rolls, but it's pretty much forward flying, basic forward flying. It handled it very well. It was comfortable. You know, depending on how you set up, again, your fly-wash control, if you've got your gains too high, you may get a little bit of chatter. We didn't have any chatter going on. Everything felt great, and it handled that standard or normal flight mode very, very well. It's very stable. And of course, as you crank things up, then it's going to respond all the way up to full competition hard 3D. So very, very wide flight envelope on the platform.
All right. Repair costs. How much is this thing going to cost if you crash it?
Yeah, you know, that's...
We've got average.
Yeah, it's average, and that's what you want. I mean...
Helicopters are expensive either way when you crash them, because it isn't just a simple, oh, I need to replace a skid, or oh, I broke a rotor blade. Well, I've never seen one flop over that doesn't lead to one more thing after another thing after another thing.
It tends to have a runaway effect in terms of part damage. But the other thing is there are an absolutely unlimited number of combinations of ways to crash a helicopter.
Well, sure.
Initial spool up for a beginner, they may get a little bit of wobble because their blades weren't straight, and next thing you know, this thing pitches over on the side. So they just flopped it right on the startup. That may not do that much damage to it. You know, you may trash your main blade or something, or depending on how quick you were on the throttle, if you could throw it into a throttle hold. Yeah, you may strip out a servo or something. Now, on these super high-end servos, when you get into the titanium gear servos and stuff, it tends not to be so much of a problem. You may break a servo horn, you may snap linkage or something like that, but the servos are fairly tough. But you're right, there's an endless combination of damage. So what we did is we broke it down is a catastrophic tail crash and a catastrophic head crash. Now, if we look at a catastrophic tail crash, this is pretty much just decimating the tail. Historically, it seems the structural tail booms on the Goblins snap right around in this range if you have a heavy tail crash. And of course, that's going to mean you're going to replace that whole structural boom. People look at it as well. I've got fewer parts, but it's a big carbon fiber piece. We came out on our catastrophic tail crash estimates around $275 for just all the parts. Now, that's not including the canopy or the mains. If you throw the canopy in, you're up around $370. And again, that's why so many manufacturers offer unpainted canopies. Yeah. Canomod canopies like this one, these are very well detailed. It's a beautiful paint job. It's very expensive. It's going to add up quickly. So, you can look at a canopy add-on, and those Canomod canopies are, $95 just for the Solar Storm airbrush canopy. So that can increase your expense. But from a tail crash perspective, that's about normal. If you figure in everything's pretty much trashed in the back end, your blades are going to go, most of your linkage, your sliders, everything are going to be shot. That's again pretty much on par. Now, when we look at the actual catastrophic head crash, again taking the canopy into consideration, with fewer moving parts with the DFC head, with the way it's laid out, with so little to deal with, so much fewer linkage, and then the actual structural components themselves, we're looking at a catastrophic head crash around $145. Now, that doesn't include the canopy or the mains. You're going to crash the mains, so there's not $125 for your main blades. But again, $145 without the canopy, $240 with the canopy. So that's pretty much average. That's on par. It's not out of the ordinary at all. And I think what you'll find, and what many people have found, is on a less than catastrophic tail crash, that structural boom's pretty tough. It's going to hold up pretty well for them. But I've seen guys crash these things and they decimate them head to tail. But it was it was everything short of pulling out in the parking lot and running over with their vehicle. Well, sure. It was a bad, hard, high impact crash. Helis are expensive, so it's just the nature of the beast. But exactly right. In terms of the Goblin, it's definitely on par or average. So.
Skill level, advanced to pro.
Yep, and it's just you're working with a performer, a competition level helicopter. Sure. You're at the advanced pro. Now, if you're a 450 pilot and you're graduating into the larger format helicopters, there's certainly nothing about the 630 that's going to say stay away from it. Don't do it. Yeah. In fact, my personal migration path or learning path was coaxials to one fixed pitch, which I didn't really like, right into a 450. Yeah. And then from the 450, I went to a 600, 600 to 700. I felt comfortable. I actually felt more comfortable when I got into larger format helicopters, but it also meant that I was at a point where I was comfortable handling a higher liability device. I mean, these things they're big, they're powerful, you can do a lot of damage, personal liability, personal injury, and there's also property damage. Fly them in a responsible place, take them out only to an airfield. Make sure you get your insurance. Fly with insurance. Don't fly these things without insurance. Stay away from spectators. I mean, follow the AMA guidelines for the most part. Even when you're out on private property and you're going to find you're very safe, and bad things have less of a tendency to happen. But from a skills perspective, once you've mastered even a small CP about this big, and you've got that control orientation down, and you fly that thing like nobody's business, you can move into a larger format, and you're going to find at that point, hey, wow, this is a lot more stable, this is a lot better performance. But this definitely falls in your intermediate to advanced helicopter. It's fast, it's powerful, it can do a lot of things very quickly, and it's expensive. So
yeah,
you know, I say it's expensive. This class of helicopter is a commitment.
Yeah, you're
it's a commitment.
Up.
So,
yeah.
And this isn't something you're going to pull out of the box ready to fly.
No.
Building skill goes into that intermediate to advanced as well.
Yep.
If you put together some you-build furniture from the local discount store and you think you're going to pull out some wrenches and build a helicopter, you got a couple things coming. So, but yeah, it was an enjoyable platform to fly, and we liked the experience. And then we're going to start playing around with some upgrades as well. And with the upgrades, we're going to start cranking that head speed up even higher, and we're going to throw some ultra high torque HV servos on it and really max it out. But as you can see from the flight footage, it's capable to do just about anything you want to do, even with a base level servo setup. So,
all right.
Well, that wraps up our review of the SAB Goblin 630. You can go to our website at tobefly.com to see the full review. For our mobile users, you can go to rcflightsource.com, download the mobile app, and take our content on the go. I'm Kurt with Two Brothers Hobby.
And I'm Rob. Thanks for watching.